Fine. Let me go and open one notepad. And let me keep here. What is the agenda for today's classes? What is the agenda for today's classes? So in today's class, we'll go and discuss about complete introduction to MS SQL Server. So in today's class, in the next coming 60 minutes of time, so we will discuss what is this Microsoft SQL Server? What is meant by MS SQL Server software? Who will use it? Who will use this software? Who will hire the SQL Server developers? And also we'll try to understand what we can do with the help of SQL Server software. SQL is used for what? So we'll discuss in detail about SQL Server now in today's class. So now let me go on keep here the different points. We'll go and discuss now in today's class. So first point, I think most of the people know that before coming to today's class, maybe you did some R&D, right? So SQL is what software? Yes, you can unmute. Go ahead, online people. Whatever you know, you can speak. No problem. SQL is what software?
Sir, SQL stands for Structured Query Language.
Database software.
Is used to.
First point.
Yep.
SQL. Few people will call the SQL as a database software. There is another name for SQL. Few other people they'll call it as an RDBMS software. Few other people will call it as what? RDBMS software. Few other people will call it as what? OLTP software. And there is another name for SQL. Few people will call the SQL as a backend development software. So people are calling the SQL with these different names. So now why people are calling the SQL with these different names? What is the reason? So you'll understand why people are calling the SQL with these different names by the end of this today's class. By the end of this today's class, you'll come to know why people are calling the SQL with these different names, guys. You'll understand each and every point I'll cover. Along with this, we'll go and discuss few more points. The next point we'll try to understand that is who will use the SQL server. Who will use what? SQL server software. And the second point, and one more point to understand here, who will hire the SQL server developers. Who will hire whom? SQL server developers. These 2 points also we'll go and discuss now in today's class. So these are different points we'll be discussing now in today's class, guys. Right. So now among all those points, first let me go and discuss about what? First we'll discuss about who will use the SQL and who will hire the SQL developers. First we'll understand these 2 points, guys. So try to understand who will use the SQL server software now. Let us say if there is any company, whatever the company it is, guys, if you take any company, if there is any company, what the companies will do? The companies will do some business. The companies will do what? They'll do some business. Now, let's take well-known companies for us, guys. Let's take Amazon. Amazon is one company. So that being some e-commerce business. Let's take some other company like ICICI. ICICI is one company. That being some banking business. Let's take Swiggy. Swiggy is some other company. That being some food business. So like this, if you take any company, guys, whatever the company it is, what the companies will do? The companies will go and do some business. Now, if the company is doing some business, then the companies will generate what? The companies will generate the business data. So if the company is doing some business, then the companies will generate what? Business data. Let's take Amazon company is there. Amazon company is doing what kind of business? E-commerce business. So Amazon company will go and generate some kind of business data, guys. Now, what kind of business data the Amazon company will generate? Let's say Amazon company will have the orders data, guys, like order ID, sales of that order. What is the sales of that order? What's the profit? Profit, they'll have the profits related data. And also they'll have the products related data, and also they'll have what sellers related data, and also they'll have what customers related data, and so on. Like this Amazon company will go and have some kind of business data, and so on. So and next, let's take ICICI is there. Now ICICI is doing what business? Banking business. Now ICICI will have what kind of business data? They'll have the different types of accounts related data, different types of loans data, different types of transactions related data. They'll have the debit cards related data. They'll have the credit cards related data. And also they'll have what? They'll have the customers related data. They'll have the employees related data, and so on, and so on. Like this ICICI company will have some kind of business data. And even if you take Swiggy company also will have what kind of business data? Same as Amazon. Swiggy company also will have the orders data. Swiggy company will have the sales data. Swiggy company will have the profits related data. Swiggy company will have products. In place of products, Swiggy company is doing what business? Food business. They'll have the food items related data. In place of sellers, here we'll call it as they'll have the restaurants related data, and also they'll have what? They'll have the customers related data, guys. So like this, if the company is doing some business, companies will generate what? Business data. Even if you take A/B trainings, guys, A/B trainings also will have some kind of business data. So what kind of business data A/B trainings will have? A/B trainings will have the students related data. They'll have the courses related data. They'll have the trainers related data. They'll have the marketing related data. They'll have the employees related data, and so on. Like this, even A/B trainings will have some kind of business data. So if the company is doing some business, then there is no doubt, then the companies will generate the business data. Then companies will have what? The companies will have some business data, right? Now, whatever the business data the companies are generating here, now they need to go and store their business data at one place. Whatever the data the companies are generating, they need to store their business data at one place. So now, in order to go and store the business data, what that software nowadays the companies are using? Now, which software the companies are using nowadays in order to go and store the business data, guys? Let me go and keep here. Companies are using which software in order to go and store the business data? So nowadays companies are using the SQL Server software. So now we understand who will use the SQL. Now, who will use the SQL Server software? Companies will use it. So if there is any company, if the company is doing some business, the companies will generate what? Business data. Whatever the business data the companies are generating, they need to store their business data at one place. Whatever, in order to go and store the business data, companies are using one software. So what is that software we are discussing here in today's class? SQL Server, right? We understand who will use a SQL. And also one more point we understand here, SQL is used for what? SQL Server is used for what? It is used to store the business data. Keep in mind, SQL Server software is used to store the business data, right? We understand who will use the SQL, and also we understand SQL is used for what? SQL is used to store the business data. And next, the next point we need to understand here, who will hide the SQL developers now? Who will hide the SQL developers? For this question also the answer will be same. So who will hide the SQL developers means which company is using the SQL Server software? Which company is using what? Which company is using the SQL Server software? The same company will go and hire whom? Same companies will go and hire the SQL developers. So who will hire the SQL developers means which company is using the SQL Server software? The same companies will go and hire the SQL Server developers. Now, why the companies are hiring the SQL developers? Okay, why? Why these companies are hiring the SQL developers? Because SQL developers need to go and work with which software? SQL developers need to go and work with which software, guys? SQL developers will go and work with the SQL Server software. Now, what will be there in the SQL Server software? Business data. I said that already. SQL is used for what? SQL Server software is used to store what? Business data. So whatever the data that is there in the SQL Server software, we are going to work with that data as a SQL developer. So keep in mind, as a SQL developer, you are going to work with the data which is there in the SQL Server softwares, right? So we understand who will use the SQL Server software, who will hire the SQL Server developers. So from here, we understand as a SQL developer, you are going to work with the SQL Server software. What will be there in the SQL Server software? Business data. So whatever the data is there in the SQL, you are going to work with the data, guys. So as you are going to work with the data which is there in the SQL Server software, that means your role as a SQL developer, your role is completely to work with the data. Keep in mind, guys, always the SQL developers will go and work with what? Data, which is stored in where? SQL Server software. So we come to know as a SQL developer, you are going to work with the data. So you need to have some knowledge on what is meant by data, first of all. As you are going to work with the data as a SQL developer, so you need to have some knowledge on what's meant by data, first of all. So let me go and keep that point here, guys. So now, as a SQL developer, you are going to work with the data. So we need to have some knowledge on what is the definition of data, guys. First, let me keep the definition now. So what is the definition of data now? In general, data is nothing but a fact or information which is collected together, and stored in a separate place for future analysis or for reporting purpose. For future analysis or for reporting purpose, we need to store the business data at one place. So this is what the definition of data. Let me go and keep here, guys. Let me explain each and every point in detail what I'm mentioning here. So now I said that data is nothing but what? Data is nothing but a fact or information. That means if you have some information with you, whatever the information it is, if you have some information with you, that information we are calling it as what? Data. So it may be any kind of information, yes, any information. If you have some information, then we'll call it as data. Let me give one simple example. Let's take I'm having some other person's mobile number with me. I'm having some other person's mobile number with me. So now this is some kind of information or not? Yes, this is some kind of information. So whatever the information I'm having with us, that information I'm calling it as what? Data. And also one more example. So if you see from the last 15 minutes of time, around from the last 15 minutes of time, I'm providing some information to you. I'm providing some information to you regarding what? SQL Server. And also you are joining for today's class. You join today's class to get some information regarding what? SQL. So from the last 15 minutes of time, I'm providing some information to you regarding SQL, guys. So whatever the information we'll have with us, that information I'm calling it as what? Data. So this is also some kind of data, guys. So data, so few people will have in mind that data may be in the tabular format. No. So data may be in any format, guys. We don't say that data must and should be in this format. So that's why I'm telling here, if you have some information with you, any kind of information, that information I'm calling it as what? Data. Okay, fine. So we understand data is nothing but a fact or information which is collected together. So now as a SQL developer, we need to go and collect the data together, guys. Why? Because business data will not be stored in one place in the real-time scenarios. So companies will store the business data in the different locations like this. They'll store the business data in the different locations like this. So now as a SQL developer, we need to go and collect that data together. Once after collecting the data, we need to store that data in a separate place. First collect the data and then store the data in a separate place. Now, why we need to store the data in a separate place? Because for future analysis or for reporting purpose. That means in future, if you want to analyze your business data or if you want to create some reports, then must and should we need to store the business data at one place, guys. If you are not storing your business data at anywhere, then you are not able to analyze or you are not able to create the reports in future, right? So now, what is meant by analysis here? What is the meaning of analysis? Analysis means, let me give an example, guys. Let's say I'm doing one business in the last 3 years. Suppose think that I'm doing one business from the last 3 years. Okay. So now, what kind of business I'm doing here is I'm doing some retail business, guys. How Amazon, Flipkart, eBay, they're doing some retail business. Same, I'm doing some retail business here. So here my requirement is, here what's my requirement? I want to go and analyze my business data in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, I need to understand the business data now. What I need to understand? In the last 3 years, what is the amount I'm spending on the business? I want to understand what is the amount I'm spending on the business. And by spending some amount, what's the sales I'm doing? What's the profits I'm getting? And also I want to understand product related data. Which products are, what are the top 5 products? What are the bottom 5 products? Which products are doing more sales? Which products are doing less sales? And also I want to understand the customers related data, like which age group customers are buying more number of products, at what time intervals the customers are buying the products. So who are the top 5 customers? Who are the bottom 5 customers? Like this, I need to go and analyze the customers related data, guys. Okay, fine. So I need to go and analyze the business data like this. Now, why you need to analyze the business data after 3 years? You are doing one business in the last 3 years. Why you need to analyze the business data after 3 years? So why the companies will analyze their business data means to enhance their business case, to take their business to the next level. So let's say I'm doing this retail business in only in South region. In India, I'm doing this retail business in which region? South. Now my requirement, I need to go and start the same business in North region also. So before going to start the same business in North region, first I will try to analyze my business data in the South region. So let's take when I start the business in the South region for the first time, let's take here it took for me 6 months to get the profits. But now when I go and start the same business in North region, maybe here it will take very less time for me. Maybe here it will take 3 months, only 3 months to get the profits. Why? Because already I know in the South region which product the customers are buying more, but also we know which age group customers are on target here. So by analyzing my South region data, when I go and start the same business in North region, so it is easy for me to get the profits in the North region at the early stage of business. So that is the reason why the companies will analyze their business to enhance their business. And next, one more point, reporting. Now, what is meant by reporting now? Reporting means most of the companies are preferred to analyze their business data in which format? Reports format, guys. Most of the companies are preferred to analyze their business data in which format? Reporting format. Now, what's meant by reporting means, let's take an example of Amazon is asking us to create one sales report, guys. They want to understand their sales data. They're asking to create one sales report. Now, in that sales report, first they're asking to show product-wise sales. To show the product-wise sales, I'm going to take one column chart. So in this column chart, I'll go and show what? In this column chart, I'll go and show product-wise what is the sales they're doing. I'm going to take one column chart. In this column chart, I'll go and show product-wise what is the sales they're doing. So I'll go and take the products in the x-axis, and I'll go and take what? Sales in the y-axis. And now, by seeing this visual, they can understand which product is doing the highest sales and which product is doing less sales. And next, they're asking me to show the profits. So to show the profits data, I'm taking one bar chart. So in this bar chart, I'll go and show the profits data. So let me create one bar chart here. So in this bar chart, I'll go and show product wise what's the profits. Product wise of the profits they're getting. Let me go and get one bar chart. Now I'm going to take the products in the y-axis. I'm going to take what? Products in the y-axis, and I'm going to take the profits in the x-axis. Now by seeing this visual, they can understand which product is doing the highest profits and which product is doing less profits. If you see, there is one product where they are getting the negative profits, where they are getting what? Negative profits. So by seeing this visual, immediately what the company will do, they'll go and stop selling this product. Why? They sell the product, they are getting some negative profits. So immediately they'll go and stop it. They'll go and stop selling this product. And next they're asking me to show the month-wise sales. They want to understand month-wise what the sales they're doing. So to show the month-wise what the sales they're doing, I'm going to take one line chart. I'm going to take which visual? One line chart. Now in this line chart, now I'll go and show the month-wise what is the sales they're doing. So now in which months they are doing more business and in which months they are doing less business. To understand this month-wise what the sales they are doing, I'm creating one line chart here. So in this, by seeing this line chart, they can understand in which months they are doing more business and in which months they are doing the less business. So here in Feb months or March months, they are doing very less business. So here maybe in October, maybe in September, October months, they are doing more business. So as Amazon, right, mostly they'll do the highest business here only, guys. Maybe in September, October, festival season, right? Like Dasara, Diwali. So these festivals will be there. Mostly they'll sell the more number of products in those months. And next, they're asking me to show region-wise what the sales. So as Amazon is doing the business in multiple regions, they're asking me to show the region-wise sales. To show the region-wise what the sales, I'm taking one pie chart. So in this pie chart, I'll go and show region-wise what the sales they're doing. Now, by seeing this visual, we can understand which region is doing highest sales, which region is doing less sales. And also they're asking me to show the category-wise sales. As Amazon is selling the different categories of products like home appliances, furniture, electronics, fashion, cosmetics. So these are the different categories of products, guys. Now, I want to understand category-wise what the sales, which category is doing what sales. So to understand the category-wise what the sales, I'm going to take which visual? I'm going to take one donut chart. Now in this donut chart, I'll go and show what category-wise what is the sales they're doing. Let me take one good visual. Okay, let me go with this. So by seeing this donut chart, they can understand which category is doing what sales. It's like furniture, office supplies, electronics, fashion, cosmetics. So by seeing this visual, they can understand which category is doing the highest sales and which category is doing the less sales. And next, they're asking me to show the total sales they're doing. Let's check, I'm taking one more visual to show the total sales. The total sales they're doing is 12 million. And I want to show the total profits also here. The total profits they're getting is 2 million. So this is one report they're asking. So now, by seeing this report, what the companies will do? Companies will go and analyze their business data. So nowadays, most of the companies are prefer to analyze their business data in which format? Reporting format only, guys. So now if you want to generate this kind of reports to analyze your business data, must and should we need to have what? Data. So must and should companies need to store their business data at one place, guys. If your company is not storing the business data anywhere, then you are not able to generate this kind of reports. So in future, if you want to analyze your business data, then companies need to store their business data at one place. That is the reason why nowadays we'll have more demand for these job roles in data related concepts, guys. We'll have the demand for database developer, data analytics developer, data engineer, and data science. So these are the different job roles we'll have for data related concepts. So it depends on the experience, depends on the skill set, your role is different, guys. So among these job roles, which job role will have more number of openings? more number of job opportunities will have the data analytics. Data analytics will have more number of job openings when compared to the remaining all. All right. So we understand what's the definition of data now. And next, let me keep here examples. Now, in which format we'll have the business data? So business data may be in any format, guys. Sometimes business data may be in the text format. It may be in the number format. Sometimes business data may be in the number format. It may be in the image format or video, audio, JSON. So data may be in any format, guys. We don't say that data must and should be in this format. Data may be in any format, but as a SQL developer, you are going to work as a SQL developer. As a SQL developer, you are going to work with what kind of business data? As a SQL developers, always we'll go and work with either text or number related data. 99% of the cases, SQL developers will work with what kind of business data? Either text or number related. We don't work with image, audio, video, or related data. Fine. So we understand what the definition of data and in which format we'll have the business data. And next, one more point. Next point we need to understand here. So I said that companies need to store their business data at one place. Now, where the companies are storing their business data nowadays means there are two places, guys. Let me keep here. Nowadays, where the companies are storing their business data means they are using the database software systems. They are using what to store the business data? They're using the database software systems. So keep in mind for now, just keep in mind, I said that nowadays companies are storing their business data in where? They're using the database software systems to store their business data, right? So still now we understand companies will store their business data in the database software systems. And now from here, we need to understand one more point. So there are different types of database software systems in the market. Different types of database software systems will have in the market. Now, what are those? What are the different types of database software systems is there in the market? So there are two types. One is DBMS. Second one is what? RDBMS. Correct. These are the two database software systems nowadays companies are using to store their business data. Now, what the DBMS stands for? DBMS stands for database
management system.
Correct. Database management systems. Now, whereas RDBMS stands for what?
Relational database management system.
Correct. Relational database management systems. Now, these are just the abbreviations. These are just the abbreviations. Let me keep the definitions now. What the definition of DBMS and RDBMS? First, let me keep the definition for DBMS, guys. Now, what the definition of DBMS? Let me go and keep here. Already we know DBMS comes under where? DBMS comes under where? Database software systems. What is the use of these database software systems? These are used to store the data. So already we know, let me keep that point here, guys. Already we know DBMS is a software which is used to store the data. Already we know that DBMS is a software which is used to store the data. Now, not only to store the data, guys, what the DBMS will do here is not only to store the data and also allows the users means developers, allows the users to define, create, maintain, and controls the access to the databases and controls the access to the databases. This is what the definition. Now let me go and explain the definition now in detail. So as we know that it is used to store the data. So now not only to store the data and also allows the users to define or create. What is meant by define or create, guys? Now try to understand. In the DBMS softwares, if you want to store the data, first of all, we need to define or create the table structure. First of all, what we need to do? We need to define or create the table structure first of all. So if you want to store the data, first of all, we need to have some table structure or not. Yes. So before going to store the data, it will allows the users to define or create the table structure. Let's say I'm going to get one table here. Let me keep the table name as employees. In this table, we'll have the columns like employee number column, employee name column, salary column, and then department number column. Let's take these are the columns I'm going to keep here, guys. Let's take these are the columns I'll keep. I'm getting one simple table here. Let me go and keep the column names, employee number, employee name, salary, and then department number. What's the table name? Employees. I'm getting one table here. Now, why we are getting tables? Because why we are getting the tables? Because to store the data. So storing the data means what? It comes under the maintenance. So what is meant by maintaining is nothing but inserting the new data in the tables. So once the tables are created, maintaining is nothing but inserting the new data. So if you want to insert the new data into the tables, yes, you can go and insert like employee ID as 101. Let me keep the name as Warner, salary as 20,000, department number as 10. So like this, if you want to go and insert the data into the tables, yes, we can go and insert the data. Not only to insert, what we can do here, it is also used to update the data. It allows to update the data here. So updating means modify. So once the data is inserted, let's take an example here. When the employee joined in the company, what's the salary of this employee? 20,000. Now after a few months, by seeing the employee performance, I want to update that employee salary from 20,000 to what? 30. Like this, if you want to update, yes, it will allow us to update the data. Not only to update, even it allows us to remove the unwanted data. If there is any data in the table which is not required for us, then if you want to delete the data, yes, you can go and delete it. So if there is some data in the table which is not required for us, then if you want to remove that data, yes, you can go and delete it. So this is what's meant by maintaining. Yes, maintaining is nothing but inserting the new data, update the old data, deleting the unwanted data. And next, one more point, controls the access to the databases. Controlling means what? Security. So whatever the data I was storing in the databases, it is secured. So let's say, who is the owner of this table, employees table? Let's take, there is one employee. The employee name is A employee, guys. What is the name of this employee? A. Now, who is the owner of this table? A employee. Now, there is another employee in the table. There is another one more employee in the table. The employee name is B employee. The employee name is what? B employee. Now, B employee, directly they can interact with the data in this table means no. B employee directly, he is not able to interact with the data. First of all, he need to get the permissions from the A employee. Once after getting the permissions, then only the B employee can go and interact with the data in the tables. So the data you are storing in the DBMS is secured. So this is what the complete definition of DBMS. And next, let me go and keep the definition for RDBMS now. So what the definition for RDBMS? Let me keep the definition now, guys. So what's the definition for RDBMS? Whatever the definitions I'm keeping for the DBMS, the same definition I'm going to keep for RDBMS also. There is no change in the definition. Just I'm adding one extra letter called what? Or. Both definitions will be same. Now you can ask me one question. If both definitions are same, then why we need to have two softwares? Either you can go with only DBMS or RDBMS. Now, let me explain this. Even though the definitions are same, there is some difference between the DBMS and RDBMS softwares. What the difference is, let's say in the DBMS softwares, I'm handed two different tables. Let's consider there are two tables we'll have. One is employees table and second is departments table. There are two tables in this. One is employees and second is what? Department. Now in the employees table, we'll have what data? Employee data. Departments table contains what data? Department related data, right? Now, these two tables will have some connection or yes, by seeing that data, we are able to understand here which employee is working under which department. So as these two tables data will have some relationship. So I want to go and create the relationship between these two tables. I want to establish some connection between these two tables. So now it is possible to create the relationships between the two tables in the DBMS softwares means no. In the DBMS softwares, we are not able to maintain the relationships between the two tables. So to overcome that problem, in order to go and maintain the relationships between the two tables, we are going for what? RDBMS. In the name, it is telling R stands for what? Relational Database Management Systems. So in the RDBMS softwares, if you have the same two tables, then if you want to create the relationship between these two tables means, yes, in the RDBMS softwares, we are able to create the relationship between the two tables. In the RDBMS softwares, we are able to create the relationships between the two tables. But whereas coming to the DBMS, in the DBMS softwares, if you want to create the relationship between these two tables means no. In the DBMS softwares, we are not able to create the relationships. So this is what the main difference between the DBMS and RDBMS, guys. Now, what happens if there is no relationships? If you have the relationships, then what advantages you'll get? So you'll understand that point in the coming classes. In the coming classes, there is one topic called normalization. When I'm discussing about this topic called normalization, there you will come to know what is the need of having the relationships between the two tables. If there is no relationships, what the problems we are going to face, you'll come to know there. But now, just keep in mind, what's the main difference between DBMS and RDBMS means. In DBMS softwares, it is not possible to create the relationships between the two tables. But whereas coming to the RDBMS softwares, in the RDBMS softwares, it is possible to create the relationships between the two tables. So this is what the main difference between DBMS and RDBMS softwares. Right. Now, among these two softwares, which one the companies are using most here? Companies are using the RDBMS softwares because we are able to maintain the relationships. Right. Now, what are the different types of RDBMS softwares we'll have in the market? Let me list out the different types of RDBMS softwares, guys. MS SQL Server. It is an what software? It's an RDBMS software. MS is what software? RDBMS. Oracle, MySQL, IBM DB2, PostgreSQL, and so on. So all this comes under where? All this comes under where? These are all the different types of RDBMS softwares. Now, among all those, what are the top two softwares the companies are using nowadays? These are the top two softwares the companies are using. Among these two also, our agenda in today's class to discuss about what? MS SQL Server. Now, try to understand the navigation, guys. MS SQL Server is what software? RDBMS, correct? We come to know MS SQL is what software? RDBMS. Now, RDBMS comes under where? RDBMS comes under where? Database software systems. That is the reason why we are calling the SQL as a database software. We are calling the SQL as a RDBMS software. This is the reason why people are calling the SQL as a database software or an RDBMS software. And next, we'll understand these 2 points also, guys. I'll cover these 2 points. Why people are calling it as an OLTP and backend development. You'll come to know these 2 points also. Before that, right, we understand nowadays companies are using the RDBMS softwares to store the data, right? Now, as you are storing the data in the RDBMS, that means it is just like what? It is just like a memory, correct? There is some memory. In that memory, you are storing the data. If you want to store some data, first of all, we need to have some memory. So just consider RDBMS. It is just like a memory case. It is just like a memory allocation where companies are storing the data, correct? Now, whatever the data the companies are storing in this RDBMS, whatever the data companies are storing in this memory allocation. Now, as a SQL developer, I need to go and communicate with the data. Data is there. Now, as a developer, you need to go and communicate with the data, or you need to go and work with the data. Now, how you can communicate or work with the data that is there in this memory allocation? So if you want to communicate or to work with the data that is there in this memory allocation, we'll go and use one language. What language it is? We'll go and use one separate language called what? SQL, structured query language. Let me mention that point here, guys. So first of all, what the SQL stands for? Now SQL stands for what? As we know, structured query language. So SQL stands for structured query language. This is what the definition abbreviation is, not the definition, is the abbreviation. Now let me go and keep the definition of SQL now. Now what's the definition of SQL? As I said that, let me keep here. As I said that SQL is a structured query language which is specially designed to communicate or work with the data stored in the RDBMS softwares. Correct? Yes. So what I'm telling here, what's meant by SQL means SQL is a structured query language which is specially designed to communicate or work with the data stored in the RDBMS software. Simple case. SQL is a structured query language specially designed to communicate with the data which is there in the RDBMS softwares. This is one of the definition for SQL. Now there is another one more definition for SQL case. What is the other definition for SQL? Let me keep here. Let me keep here the another definition now. Or SQL is a or SQL is an OLTP software which is used to store the business data or transactional data. Now, what I'm telling here, SQL is what software? OLTP software. Now you can ask me one question. Yeah, just now you said that SQL comes under the RDBMS software. Then again you are calling it an OLTP. Then what it means? Try to understand, guys. OLTPs, it is not a separate software. It is just one naming terminology in the IT. So the place where the companies will store their business data or transaction, instead of calling it as business data, better to call it as what? Transactional data. Transactional data means latest business data. So today's business data, yesterday's, tomorrow, or last 1 month, last 2 months, last 6 months data. So the place where the companies will store their transactional data, that means the latest data. So the place where the companies are storing their latest data or the transactional data, the place we are calling it as what? OLTPs. So it was just one naming convention. Not only SQL, Oracle, MySQL, IBM DB2, PostgreSQL, Excel, CSV files, all this comes under where? OLTPs only. Because these are all the softwares where the companies are using to store their transactional data. That means latest business data, right? So now what the OLTP stands for? OLTP stands for online transactional processing. So this is what this is the reason why SQL will call it as a OLTP, because we are storing the transactional data. So that is the reason why we are calling the SQL as what software? OLTP software, right? And next, the next point, who developed the SQL initially? Any guess? No, SQL is developed by the
Microsoft company.
IBM.
correct. SQL is developed by initially IBM company in the year 1970s. What software the SQL developed by IBM means? This is used to communicate with what software? RDBMS softwares. RDBMS softwares are the this what the basic SQL is. So whatever the SQL developed by the IBM company in the year 1973, that one we are calling it as IBM DB2 nowadays. IBM DB2, correct? So this is the basic this is the basic SQL case. Now, but our agenda here in today's class to discuss about what? MS SQL Server. Now, what the definition of MS SQL Server? Let me keep the definition now. Now try to understand. Whatever the definitions I'm keeping for the basic SQL developed by IBM company, the same definition for MS SQL Server also. There is no change in the definitions. Both definitions will be same. Both softwares will be same. Functionality is same. Behavior is same. Usage is same. Everything is same. Only thing is, initially SQL is developed by IBM. By taking that SQL as a reference, which is developed by the IBM company. So Microsoft company developed another software called what? MS SQL Server. Now, who developed the MS SQL Server now? IBM. Who developed the MS SQL? Sorry, not IBM. MS SQL developed by which company? Microsoft company. Microsoft. In which year? 1989. It is also an RDBMS software. So only the names are different, guys. Software names are different, but the usage, behavior, functionality, the way it will work will be same. Not only this, all this SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, DB2, PostgreSQL, all this functionality will be same. In all these softwares, we are using one common language, what? SQL language, structured query language, right? And next point, let me give one example here where the SQL will be used in the real-time scenarios. Let me give an example case, one real-time use case. And also let me mention this point here. I said that SQL will call it as what? Backend development software. I think most of the people know this word, guys. SQL is backend development software. It is easy to understand. Easily we can learn. And anyone can enter the IT. People, those who are coming from non-IT, non-technical, can learn this and easily they can enter the IT. Why people are calling it as a backend development? Let me keep here. SQL Server will act as a backend development software, which is used to store the business data in the form of tables. Try to understand. SQL will act as what software I'm telling? Backend development, which is used for what? Store the business data in the form of what? Tables. Now, why people are calling the SQL as a backend development software? So why we are calling it as a backend development? Let me give an example. Let's say if you want to create one Gmail account, to create the Gmail account, you'll go to where? Either Chrome or Microsoft Edge. And you'll click on the link, create new Gmail. When I click on that create new Gmail, so it will open one form, right? Yes, it will open one form where we need to enter some information, where we need to go and give some information there, like your first name, middle name, last name, mobile number, reference email ID, and date of birth, some and also some personal details for security. Once after passing all this information, next there will be one button here called submit button or OK button. There will be one button called what? Submit button or OK button. Once after entering all this information, when I click on the submit button or OK button, it will navigate you to the new window where you can see your new Gmail account, right? Once after passing the information, when I click on the submit button, successfully I'm able to create the Gmail account. Once if I click on submit, whatever the information you are entering in this form, you are not able to view that data again. Once if I hit on submit button, you are not able to see that data, whatever you entered again. So where that data will be stored? You are entering some data. You are clicking on submit button. You are able to create the Gmail account. But whatever the information you are entering in the Google form, where that information is going to be stored. So when I click on the submit button, whatever the data you are entering in the form, that complete data will go and store in the backend. In the backend, it will store the data in where? Databases. What is the database software we are discussing here now in today's class? SQL Server. So in the databases, it will store the data in the form of what? Tables. That now, once the data comes into the backend, that is into the databases in the form of tables, whatever the data is there in the tables, on the top of the data, you are going to work as a SQL. So as you are going to work with the data that comes into the tables, once the users click on submit button, that is the reason SQL developers are calling as what? Backend developers. Once the data comes into the backend, into the database tables, on the top of the data, you are going to work as a SQL developer. That is the reason why people are calling, why SQL developers are calling as backend development software. So this is the reason why we are calling the SQL as a backend development software, right? Fine. Next point, this SQL server, this it is divided into two parts, guys. Basic complete SQL server is divided into two parts. One is basic SQL. Second one is T-SQL. In simple words, T-SQL means consider as advanced SQL. So first, let me go and discuss about the basic SQL concepts. Few points related to the basic SQL, and then I'll give some brief introduction to T-SQL. First of all, let me go and discuss about the basic SQL. So in the basic SQL, first point you need to understand here. I'm mentioning some point or some letters called ANSI. Now, what is meant by ANSI? ANSI stands for American National Standard Institutes. American National Standard Institutes. That means on us, while developing the SQL, they followed some standards. What standards they are following is ANSI. So while we are writing the SQL in the backend, the developer the SQL by keeping in mind this ANSI standards, guys, American National Standard Institutes. And next point, this SQL server is a programming or a non-programming language, guys. SQL server is SQL server is not a programming language. SQL server is not a programming language. So in order to go and learn the SQL, you need to have any prior coding skills like C, C++, Java, Python, .NET. You require any prior coding skills to learn the SQL means no, it is not required, guys. Because I am telling that strictly SQL is not a programming language. You don't require any prior coding skills. So now as I'm telling that SQL is not a programming language, then what language the SQL will allow? SQL will have their own language, guys. We'll call it as what? Query language. SQL will have their own language that is called as what? Query. So let me go and keep here. SQL doesn't allow any other programmings like C, Java, Python. So here, SQL will have their own language that is query language. Let me keep that point here. SQL server will allows a separate language called what? Query language. Now, what is meant by query? Query means there are different meanings, case. But what is meant by query in the SQL terminology? In the SQL terminology, query is nothing but retrieve the data, or we'll call it as fetch, or we'll call it as get the data from the tables. As we know that data will be stored in which format? Tabular format in the SQL. So whatever the data is there in the SQL, if you want to get the data from the tables, we need to write what? Queries. Let's take an example, guys. Let's take I'm having one table, EMP table. In this table, there is some data. 10 employees data is there. I'm having how many employees data? 10 employees data. Now, whatever the data is there in this table, I want to get the data from this table in the output now. So whenever if you want to get the data from the tables in the output, then in this case, what we need to do? We need to go and write some queries. By writing some queries only, you are able to view the data in the tables. So that's what's meant by query language, right? And next one more point. This SQL server is a both GUI and CUI software. It is a both GUI and CUI software, guys. Now, what's meant by GUI and CUI? GUI stands for what? CUI stands for what? GUI stands for graphical user interface. Whereas CUI stands for character user interface. CUI stands for what? Character or command user interface. That means GUI is nothing but without writing any code. If you are doing some operations without writing any code, then we'll call it as GUI. What is meant by CUI? CUI means with the code. If you're doing something by writing some code, we'll call it as CUI. So in the SQL, we'll use both GUI and CUI options. So this is about the basic SQL. From here to here, whatever the points I'm mentioning, it is about the basic SQL. Now, let me go and discuss about the T-SQL case. So in simple words, we can say T-SQL is nothing but consider it as an advanced SQL. Consider it as an advanced SQL. And now, first point, T-SQL stands for what? T-SQL stands for what? Any guess?
Transaction SQL.
Correct. So T-SQL stands for Transact Structured Query Language. Transact Structured Query Language. Now, who developed the T-SQL? T-SQL is also developed by the same company, Microsoft. Same company, Microsoft, in the same year. But what software it is? It comes under the RDBMS. Already we know what the RDBMS is, but now what the WO stands for? Object
Oriented.
Correct. Object oriented relational database management system. So why we are calling it as an object oriented relational database management system means, because already said that T-SQL is nothing but advanced SQL. Yes, as we are going to discuss some advanced concepts here, that's why I'm calling it as an object oriented. That means they are called as OOPS concepts. Let's take in Java. Java is divided into two parts, basic and advanced. In the advanced Java, there will be some, in the advanced Java, we'll have the concept called what? OOPS concepts. All the OOPS is nothing but what? Object-oriented programming. So with the help of this OOPS concepts, we are able to write some complex code to achieve the client requirement. Same here also. So by with the help of basic SQL, we are sometimes we are not able to achieve the client requirement. So to achieve the client requirements, if you want to build some complex logics, this case will go for what? T-SQL. And next point, this T-SQL, it is a programming or a non-programming language. It is a programming language. T-SQL is what? Programming language. Now I am telling that T-SQL is a programming language. Then in order to go and learn the T-SQL, you need to have any prior coding skills now, like C, C++, Java, Python, .NET. You require any prior coding skills means? Again, no, not required. Then why I'm calling the T-SQL as a programming language? Let me keep here, yes, because of, keep in mind, in the T-SQL also, we will write the basic SQL queries only. That means whatever the queries we written in the basic SQL, The same queries we'll write in the T-SQL also. But while writing the queries, to achieve the client requirement, let's take he is my client. To achieve my client requirements, I need to go and implement some complex logics. To implement that complex logics, I'll go and use something called controls. Controls means like if condition, if else, case not nested, case and while. These are the controls we'll have. So if you are using any one of these control statements while writing the query, then we are calling it as a programming language. Simple guess. Why I'm calling it as a programming means because while writing the query, we'll use some controls like if condition, if else case, and while. Along with this, we'll use one more concept called variables. We'll use one more concept called what? Variables. So if you are using the variables and control statements while writing the query, then we'll call it as a programming. So keep in mind, in the T-SQL also, we'll write the basic SQL queries only. Other than the SQL queries, we don't write any other programmings. And finally, one more point. Finally, we come to know when to go with the T-SQL means T-SQL, it is used to build complex logics. To get the client requirements. Whenever if you want to build some complex logics to achieve the client requirements, then only we'll go for what? T-SQL. Right. So this is all about the T-SQL case. Fine. So now I'm done with the session. So let me conclude the session, guys. Let me conclude it. So I said that in today's class, in the 1 hour of time, I said that you'll be understanding in detail about what is SQL Server. So and also we understand why people are calling the SQL with these different names. So at the beginning of the class, maybe some few people doesn't know why people will call the SQL with these different names. Now we understand each and every point why people are calling the SQL with these different names. We come to know. And also we understand who will use the SQL and who will hide the SQL developers. From here, we understand as a SQL developer, you are going to work with what? You are going to work with the SQL Server software. What will be there in the SQL Server software? Data. So as a SQL developer, you are going to work with what? Data. So we understand what's the definition of data and in which formats we'll have the data and where the companies are storing in nowadays. Database software systems, we understand about the different types of databases. We discussed about what is meant by DBMS, RDBMS, differences between DBMS and RDBMS softwares. And we listed different RDBMS softwares is there in the market. And then we understand what's meant by SQL, what's the definition, who developed, when it is developed, and then few points related to the SQL Server. And also we understand SQL is divided into two parts, basic and T-SQL. We discussed a few points related to basic SQL. Discussed a few points related to the basic SQL. And also we discussed a few points related to what? T-SQL. Right. Fine. I'm done with the session. Let me conclude the session, guys. So please make a note. Make a note. Give me some couple of minutes. I'll take the questions from your end. Let me do one thing. Let me copy and paste something from here. So to write everything, it will take some lot of time. Right. So make a note. Once after completion of this class, you'll be receiving one email. So in that mail, you'll get what? Today's class notepad. I'll share this class notes with you, whatever discussed in today's class. Along with the class notes, you'll get what? one Word document. Regarding today's class, I'll share one Word document with you. Along with that, I'll share what? Video, today's class video, today's class recorded video I'll share. Along with this, you will get what? Course content. So I will share you the course content also. So I think all of you received the curriculum. If not, I will share it. So you please go and walk through that content once, guys. I will share the course content with you. Just go and walk through the curriculum once. So here in this curriculum, I listed clearly what the topics we'll be discussing in our upcoming sessions. Today we discussed about what? Definition of data, types of data, DBMS, RDBMS, table, difference between DBMS and RDBMS, database, double RDBMS, SQL, MS SQL, T-SQL, difference between SQL and T-SQL, and what is a query. Up to here we discussed. In the next class, we'll discuss about what? SQL Server software installation. That means the different softwares you need to install in your systems in order to go and work with the SQL. So the next class tomorrow. So in the next class, we'll be discussing about what? Completely the installation part. What are the different softwares you need to install in your systems to work with the SQL? We'll discuss in the next class tomorrow. So like this topic wise, clearly I listed here. You please go and walk through the content once, guys, so that you'll come to know what topics we'll be discussing in our upcoming sessions, right? Fine. And next, what's the course duration? Maximum 35 days. Hardly the course duration will be 35 days. Daily 1 hour session, Monday to Friday. Saturdays and Sundays, mostly we don't have the classes. And coming to the registered students, if you got registered with us, what the benefits you'll get? So registered students, daily you'll get the notepad. Every class notepad you'll get. And and you'll get what? Word document. Every class Word document I'll share with you. Also, I will share what? All recordings. Every class recording you will get. And also I'll share what? Tables. Whatever the tables we are going to create in our regular classes. As a SQL developer, you will create the multiple tables, guys. So whatever the tables we are creating in our classes, so I'll share the tables data with you. And also whatever the queries I'm going to write in our upcoming sessions, I will write all the queries also. I will share all the queries also with you. So you people just try to understand what I'm explaining in the class. Even you don't want to write the learning notes also, not required. Because whatever you are able to see in my screen, everything you will get it in the mail, right? And next, once after this course completion, I'll share the interview questions. And also I will share 2 case studies. Case studies is like projects, 2 mini projects. So case study 1 and case study 2. So in these 2 case studies, you will be answering around 60 plus 20, 80 plus questions you will be answering here. And coming to the batch details. So this is what the stuff you'll get, people, those who got registered. And coming to the new batch case. So when we'll start the new batch will start from tomorrow. New batch will start from when? Tomorrow itself. So new batch will start from tomorrow. So that is what? 4th September, Thursday. Batch timings is what? Same timings, evening 6 to 7 p.m. So continuation of today's class is on tomorrow. From tomorrow onwards itself, we'll start the new batch. Today is considered as a demo. From the next class, we'll start the batch from tomorrow. So batch timings will be evening 6 to 7 p.m. And most importantly, coming 2 more classes are free. So you have the access to attend the 3 free classes, guys. Even you don't want to pay any even registration fee also. You can attend these free classes, 3 free classes. So today is the first class. Coming 2 more classes are free. That means tomorrow and day after tomorrow. So as it is free of cost, try to attend them. So to attend those classes, online people go and use which link? The same link. Whatever the link you are using for today's class, use that same link to attend the tomorrow and day after tomorrow's class. So once after completion of the 3 free classes, if you are able to understand what I'm explaining, then you will get all this stuff. So then if you are able to understand what I'm explaining, then only go and register. Registered people, you'll get all this stuff, right? Let me stop here today. We'll be discussing from here the next class on when? Tomorrow. At what time? Same, evening 6 to 7 p.m. What I will discuss there in the next class tomorrow? Installation part. What are the different softwares you need to install in your systems to work with SQL Server? Fine. Now let's go with the questions. Now, online people, now if you have any questions, You can please raise your hands. I'll talk to you one-on-one, guys.
Yeah, hi, Venki, Siddharth here.